So in the past, I've done videos on blue fragrances in my collection, which are typically oceanic aquatic fragrances. 3 years ago, I did a video on red fragrances in my collection, and I pretty much redid that video with more recent releases a few days ago. Well, in today's video, we're going to be going over white bottles of fragrances in my collection, and I want to see if we can establish some kind of a theme or a motif. Are these fragrances that are intended to be more on the fresher side of things, the floral side of things? What is it about this aesthetic? What is it trying to convey? We'll see if we can find something that kind of combines all of these fragrances together thematically. I'm excited to dive into this list, so make sure to stay tuned. Now, before I begin today's episode and I go over these 10 white bottles in my collection and see if we can establish a theme, if they are connected with one another thematically in any way, I want to start things off by saying that if you're a fan of fragrance-related content, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it. Hit the bell icon so you could be notified whenever I do upload future videos to the channel. And of course, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, or if you took something of value from today's episode. It would really mean a lot to me. And moreover, if you would like to see me do this type of video with any other color or any other aesthetic, leave your comment down below. I'd be more than happy to explore different territory and different colors. And I think this could be a pretty cool idea, especially when it's kind of used as an evaluatory sort of a means to see if there is kind of a similarity among the DNA or the olfactive profile of any of these fragrances. So let's see if we can arrive at a verdict at the end of today's video. The first fragrance that I want to talk about today is Verve Matan by Navitus Parfum. Now, although I am the founding creative director of this brand, I did not work on this particular fragrance. This fragrance was worked on by Buck Moore, who has a channel called Big Beard Business, and it was composed by Bertrand Duchaufour. Now, this is a very fresh, bright, slightly spicy, citrusy, and minty fragrance. There is clary sage, there's laurel, I think there's a touch of cardamom in here as well, but a ton of citrus. So this is a very bright, fresh, citrusy type of a fragrance, really easy to wear, high compliment factor, professional smelling, but you can also wear this one casually at the same time. So we kind of have that bright, fresh, citrusy DNA established with this one. Now, the next fragrance on this list is by Moresque, and it's called Tamima. Now, one thing that you might notice is that they all have this sort of white and gold aesthetic. For whatever reason, gold pairs really well with white when it comes to the hardware of these bottles, whether that be on some kind of an insignia or the cap or whatever. You'll see there's a bit of a theme here. I was kind of surprised. This fragrance is actually an amber fragrance. It smells a whole lot like Alexandria 2 by Xerjoff. And this fragrance has the amber, the cashmeran, there's a bit of oud in here as well. So here we're going in a bit of a darker, more exotic direction. So there seems to be really no overlap between these two fragrances. Maybe one of the two was a bit of an anomaly, so let's continue and see if we can sort of bridge the gap a little bit. Next we have Apollonia by Xerjoff. Okay, so this is a starchy iris fragrance with some other white floral ingredients and a bed of musk. So this is largely floral, it's clean, it's starchy, there are no rough edges. Some people say it leans a little feminine, but I disagree. Another one that has gold hardware to sort of complement the white base or the white bottle, right? But it does smell rather nice. I really love the natural vibe of the iris that is in here. One of the best iris fragrances on the market. And with that, we actually have another iris fragrance. So maybe we're going to look at a more floral direction here. This one by Stefan Humbert Lucas is called Panthea Iris. So this does have iris in it, and it's such a high quality, beautifully done, organic iris ingredient. But then there's also tobacco. So this one also takes things in a bit of a dark direction. So I suppose with a lot of these bottles, there has to be some kind of a bright element to it. And yes, there's even a little bit of citrus in Tamima, not a whole lot. It kind of evolves into that ambery oud DNA rather quickly, but we are seeing here that there is an overlap between these two more recent reveals on this list, Apollonia and Panthea Iris. They happen to be on the floral side of things. Now, the next fragrance here, and I am doing my best to kind of rank these fragrances leading up to my favorite one, we have Atlantide by Tiziana Terenzi. This, once again with the gold hardware, this one is a beautiful tuberose fragrance. It's tuberose, it's floral, it's musky. It feels like there's a little bit of iris in there as well, but there's also this passion fruit note. So while you think it's going to be like this pure white floral bouquet, there is actually another interesting note in there, which is the passion fruit that kind of takes it in a different direction, right? So I see that in terms of the hue or the color of the bottle, it does match with some of the ingredients, right? So you do have these white florals, you do have the iris and the tuberose, and so there are some ingredients in here that kind of sync or line up with the presentation of the fragrances. But Atlantide, incredibly expensive, but it's worth the money in my opinion. It's a beautiful, beautiful fragrance, very high quality and very long lasting. Then we have another fragrance that I absolutely love. This one by j.u.s is called Superfusion. Superfusion has a ton of synthetic ingredients in here. There is ambretolide, if I'm remembering correctly, galaxolide, some very expensive synthetic musk ingredients. There's also ambroxan and isoe super and perhaps even a little bit of hedione. But I do remember there being Immortelle, which is kind of a spicy, slightly sweet brown sugar type of an ingredient. And then there's also heliotrope, which can also be a little on the sweet side of things, and it can smell a bit like almond. So here we also have kind of like this clean vibe. I would say these two fragrances, Superfusion and Verve Matan, are thematically quite similar. I would say that Atlantide, Panthea Iris, and Apollonia are quite similar. And then Tamima kind of does its own thing, right? Like, I don't know if we're going to see any other ambery fragrances on this list necessarily, but we are seeing an incensey fragrance here. And this one is Puritas by Electimus London. So this fragrance has one of the best frankincense notes I've ever smelled. If you are a fan of fragrances like Cardinal by Healy, Full Incense by Montal, Incense Avignon by Comme des Garçons, you have pretty much a good idea of what Puritas is going to smell like. And this fragrance has this long-lasting frankincense note, which in my opinion has always smelled like pine and lemon. And so it kind of has like this earthy, bright, citrusy texture to it. So we're seeing that this is probably one of the more abstract themes where fragrances can really go in any which direction. And we also have another bottle with a gold cap. And this one by Amouage is called Honor for Men or Honor Man. Now this is an incredibly peppery and woodsy fragrance, definitely on the dry side of things, no hint of sweetness in there, unlike Tamima, which does have the agarwood, so it's a bit on the darker side, but there is a bit of sweetness with some of those resins, perhaps labdanum and maybe even a touch of vanilla. And so with that being said, we have two left on the list, and I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, these are the two fragrances on this list that I wear the most, and that's the reason I put them in the number 1 and number 2 spot respectively. In the number 2 spot, we have a Swiss Army knife type of a fragrance. This one also kind of goes in a clean direction. There is pepper, there's a bit of citrus, there's also orange blossom with a touch of violet, if I'm remembering correctly. This one quite abstract, very similar to Silver Mountain Water, which also could have been on this list, but this one is Galloway by Parfum de Marly. Now Galloway is kind of one of the underrated fragrances from the brand. They always talk about Leighton and Pegasus and some of the other sweeter, more contemporary or more recent releases from the brand. Galloway is a bit on the older side of things, but very much like Silver Mountain Water, which let's consider it an honorable mention, right? This one has a bit of that abstract quality, a bit peppery, certainly fresh. And with that being said, we have the number 1 fragrance on this list. Thematically, this is the one that is the most similar to Tamima without that sort of dark oud ingredient that is in the base. This one is a bit fresher. There is bergamot, there is a touch of sweetness. This one is a bit spicy as well. There's vanilla, there's a bit of lavender in here too. This one by Inicio Parfum Privé is called Rehab. Of course, I could have gone with Paragon, or I could have gone with Musk Therapy, and maybe I should have gone with Musk Therapy. That would have also been kind of similar to Superfusion by j.u.s, but Rehab is kind of the niche version of Spice Bomb by Victor and Rolf, which also gets compared to Bulgari Man in Black, which also gets compared to 1899 Hemingway by Histoire de Parfum. Nevertheless, Rehab is an amazing, amazing fragrance. And to be honest with you, there is not a single fragrance in this list that I dislike. I really love every single fragrance in this list, including Silver Mountain Water, which I called it an honorable mention, but it's not pictured here. All of these fragrances have something that I really enjoy, but the ultimate verdict is that they all do something very, very different from one another. I think blue translates very well into an olfactive terrain because it kind of evokes fresh, citrusy, aquatic, oceanic, so on and so forth. And one thing that we saw with a lot of the red bottles is that they tend to be on the spicy and sweet side of things. So actually there was more of a thematic overlap there. Here, not so much. It seems very sort of ambiguous, kind of precarious as well, like everybody is kind of doing their own thing. But if you would like for me to explore this with any other color, any other vibe in terms of presentation or whatever, let me know. I would love to do that. If you enjoyed this video, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it. Hit the bell icon, give this video a thumbs up. 10 white bottles in my fragrance collection ranked. Thank you for watching. Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.